Oh. Someone's asked a question about referencing in the Q&A section. We're not answering questions in the Q&A. Please use the Easy Retro board. Someone's asked a question about referencing section. We're not answering questions in the Q&A. Please use the easy reference. Hi, Heather.
Hi, Peter. How you going?
I'm good.
Are there other students on yet?
Got 106.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Georgie. Good morning to you too. Is this retro board that's up, Peter, new for today?
No, I was about to change it, but people had started asking questions already.
Okay, I'll answer some questions about Sonia, and I might address that as well that people keep asking.
Okay.
In the Q&A session when it starts at 9.
Yeah. I think I have now. I'm starting to merge questions, so where
Okay, then.
when I'm starting to put them together. Oh, we got a lot of new ones down the bottom. Maybe I'll put the new ones coming up the top. Hang on, let's change the sort order.
Don't change it while I'm typing.
Too late. Actually, I haven't done it anyway. That was really weird.
Oh, wow, there's lots of questions.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thanks. I'll start sharing mine now.
Okay.
Could you please give me permission to share?
Yeah, sorry, I'll make you the host. Hang on. Panelists. Make host. Okay, you've got control.
Ooh.
I know, it's dangerous. Why
It's very dangerous. Just getting something up. Well, the chat function is still working, people. I'm just putting up the link to the Building Successful Pathways session that runs after this session. So it'll run from 10 till 11 a.m. today. And you get to hear me again for another hour, which I know you're all looking forward to. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate your support. And the session from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. will look at doing an international study tour as part of your undergraduate studies. It won't be going ahead this year, but it should go ahead, fingers crossed, in 2022. So now we've got 199 people here. That's fabulous. We'll start in about 4 minutes. And remember, if you do have any questions, to go to that retro board. And that's fine. But if you have any questions about the course as we're going through, please make sure you raise your hand, not physically raise your hand on the Zoom, and I will get to you about that. Don't use the chat function on the Zoom because I won't be reading it at the same time as I'm talking.
And we're not going to be using the Q&A either.
I beg your pardon?
We won't be responding to the Q&A.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be responding in Easy Retro.
Let me share my screen. Oh, that doesn't really work.
Yeah, we're not seeing the presentation view, we're seeing.
Because when I share my screen, then I can't see how people are putting up their hands.
Oh, okay.
Could you?
You should, yeah, you can do. If you separate the panel, from, you should be able to have the panel floating.
Oh, yeah, that is correct. I'm just going to put it down so it's in my eyesight. Georgie, if you're still online, could you please just raise your hand in Zoom so I can see? Okay, so Georgie raised your hand. Yes, I can see it. Just keep it up for a bit longer, please, Georgie. Can you put your hand back up until I tell you to put it down? Because I'm working on 3 different screens and
Heather, what we're seeing is your PowerPoint, not the presentation. So if you've got it in presentation mode, that's not what we're seeing.
no, I don't have it in presentation mode.
That's okay.
I might just keep it like this because when I put in presentation mode, it then really stuffs everything up. So I'll just go like that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, Georgie, Thank you very much. Could you put your hand down now? Thank you. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you being my little guinea pig. Amy, do you actually have a question or are you just practicing? We'll just start in 1 minute, Amy. So I'll just leave you hanging there if you don't mind for a bit. And Amy, I'll come to you as well in a minute, Amy Webster. So we've got Amy Boylan and Amy Webster. Oh, Amy Webster's gone. All right, do you think I should start now, Peter?
Yeah, I've just lost Google Chrome, so that's going to screw me up a bit.
Okay. That will.
Oh, it's back. I'm good.
Okay, well, it is a Q&A session, so good morning, everybody. I might just wait till 9 o'clock. That's only fair. I will. Oh, it's 9 o'clock. Okay. Are we recording this, Peter?
Yeah, it's being recorded.
Awesome. Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to EDUC 1038, EDUC 1048, week 3. By now, you should have sorted out your tutorials. You should be able to access the course readings. For those of you who mentioned that not all the course readings were on the course readings, I normally do that intentionally because I make people go to the library database, but Peter thought that was a bit nasty. So you can thank Peter. I've now put them all on the course readings. So you should be able to see them there quite easily. So I'll just go to you, Amy. Hi, Amy. How are you going? How can I help you?
Hi, good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm pretty sure you just answered my question, but I was a preschool teacher before I started this course. So I was going to use the reading on being a preschool teacher, but I couldn't find it on course reading. So is it now there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, okay. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
You're welcome, no worries. Okay, so today's Q&A. If you have a question at any time, of course, you can ask. That's not a problem. Just put your hand up and we will get to that. You can also use the retro board. So let's have a look. Just to remind everybody that after this session, we have the first year Building Successful Pathways session. And this week, I'm the guest speaker, and the topic is going to be on how you can learn how to incorporate international study tour into your degree. So that means you can travel to different places, get a loan for it from the government, actually, the same as your HEX loan, and go to many wild and very different places. Ones that we normally run in the School of Education are France and Belgium, which is what I do, Italy, Zimbabwe, China, and another one that I do is Fiji. So you come along and hear about those and the opportunities that it has for you in your second, third, or fourth year, because there will not be any study tours this year, but we also don't take first years. So in your second, third, or fourth year, you have the opportunity to go on this study tour. And don't forget the other drop-by sessions during the week. We've got the Bring the Kids Evening session, which I also facilitate. Then Melanie does the drop-by sessions on Wednesday. Get Active, Stay Active also on Wednesday, and drop by at Arimba on Thursday afternoon. So lots of different activities for you to do and get involved with. So that's 2 online and 3 face-to-face. Okay, moving on. So this week we really focused on the teaching profession as our big concept. Last week it was education as a career. This week it's teaching profession, and we focused on things like ethics, code of conduct, professional standards. We looked at, well, what is a profession? And we also looked at how do we codify professional behaviour, and we looked at that through having what are ethics, a little bit ethereal, but how can we ground those through a code of conduct and having professional standards? Does anybody have any questions about the content from this week's weekly activities or tutorial preparation activities? Okay, Kira, I'm going to give you permission to talk. Yes, Kira. Unmute yourself, please. Hi, Kira.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. I was just wondering, with the weekly activities, should we be completing all of them? Because I'm a little bit overwhelmed with how long all the weekly activities take. And I was just wondering whether we should be doing all of it each week.
Yeah. Kira, that's a good question. We don't want you to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
We setting out the activity so that it's really clear. Just go dot, 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 dot.
Mhm.
What I would suggest is do as many as you can.
Yeah.
It's important to do the textbook readings. I suppose that's a good starting place if you are time poor.
Yeah.
Absolutely do the tutorial preparation activities. That's really important.
Mhm.
But sometimes maybe I might say it takes an hour to read something, but you might find it only takes 25 minutes. So sometimes those timings are generous. But you also don't have to do them all in one go.
Okay.
So you can think about doing, okay, I'm just going to start here. I'm going to devote 1 hour to my study this day or in this morning about this and do that activity, and then come back another time and do the next one, and then so forth. So you don't have to do them all in one go.
Yeah. Okay.
But definitely do the tutorial preparation activities before you tutorial. That's probably the most important one if you're super time poor. But then what you can do is during the mid-semester break, for example, when we don't have lectures or don't have Q&As and you don't have more content, then you can go back and go, okay, I missed out half of week 3 because I was super busy. I'm going to go and do week 3, the rest of week 3 now.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Kira. Does anybody else have any questions? Yep, Emily, I'm just going to give you permission to talk, Emily. If you just give me a second, Emily, allow to talk. Yes, Emily, please unmute yourself, and how can I help you?
I was just wondering, with this week's PDFs of the code of conducts, is there a question based with all those PDFs that are attached in the weekly activities for this week, if you know what I mean? So the professional standards.
Yep. I know what you mean. Yep. So I've given you a folder with lots of different codes of conducts and ethics and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's a good idea is save them on your computer.
Okay.
I don't require you to read each of them in depth,
Okay.
at all, each of them at all. If you need to read them, there's an activity associated with it.
Okay.
What I did with just chucking them all in a folder was I thought it's good for you to know about these, and it's good for you to save them, and it's good for you just to have an awareness. But I don't expect you to read. They're pretty dry.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. Anybody else want to ask any more questions about this week's content or this week's reading? I hope you enjoyed it. I think it's important to think about yourself as professionals and as you're embarking on this fabulous career of being an educator. I'll move on then. So we have the assignment due, and I guess a lot of you may have come to hear about the assignment. And it is due the end of week 4, which is next week, the 19th of March. And I just want to give a big shout out to all the women and supporters of women in the course today for International Women's Day. I hope we all find some ways to celebrate women. Jessica, I'm going to allow you to talk. Please unmute yourself. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, I just had a question about the assignment.
Yep.
So with deciding what issue to talk about, is it you're talking about 2 issues or 1 issue and then like 2 topics that relates to that issue?
It doesn't particularly matter, Jessica. What you want to do is you want to have 2 readings from the course, okay? They don't have to relate to each other. One, yeah, you could have a one on preschool, and you could have one on there's another article down the track by Henry Giroux. They don't necessarily have to relate, but so you're going to take 2 readings from the course, and what you're going to talk about is how do they relate to education? How do they connect to education and schooling? So you don't have to select an issue per se. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Jessica. That was a good question, by the way, because a few people have asked that last week as well. So I was going to repeat it though, not for your sake, just to give everyone else's, then I'll get to you, Kieran. Select 2 readings from the course, any 2, doesn't matter. Then when you do a Cornell method on one, a Cornell method on the other, then you do your summary, you're bringing it all together at the end with the 2 together, and then how do they relate to education, generally speaking? Thanks, Jessica. Okay, Kieran, can you please unmute yourself? Hi, Kieran.
Just quick question. I was just wondering, do they have to be from the course readings, or can
Yes.
you choose your own?
No, they have to be from the course readings. Did you have a really good one, Kieran, that you wanted to use? No? Okay, you've muted yourself, Kieran. If you wanted to speak to me, you can. No? Okay. Yes, Kieran?
So yeah, do they have to be from the course? Like I've got one from John Dewey. It's I can't remember exactly the title of it, but yeah, that was a really good course reading from last semester.
Have you already done this course, Kieran? I think we're just going to stick with using the course readings from this semester. Okay, I'll go on to Riley. And wait a minute. Okay, Riley. Can you unmute yourself, please, Riley? And how can I help you?
Can you hear me?
I can, Riley.
Okay, so for the assessment, when we do the Cornell notes part and the summary, do they have to equal a total of 250 words together, or is the Cornell notes and the summary part separate from each other?
No, I will. So let me just clarify what you mean there. I'll just go down to the criteria sheet. What we have to do is part one, if you can see it on my screen now, is the 2 readings from the course. So one Cornell method is 250 words, everything. The second Cornell method is 250 words, everything. So that's 250 plus 250. Then you get down to part 2, which is the explanation of combining them together and how do they relate to education broadly. And that's 300 words. So in total, the assignment is 250 words plus 250 words plus 300 words. And I think that's 800. Yep. Does that make sense, Riley?
Yeah, that's all good. I just didn't know if the summary was separated from the Cornell notes, but it's not.
So what do you mean by summary? Do you mean the summary within the Cornell notes?
Yeah, the summary within the Cornell notes.
So we call that just part of the Cornell, that's part of the Cornell notes.
Okay, no worries, thanks.
That's a really good question, Riley, by the way. Lots of people ask that every year, so good question. Okay, I'll just go back up. Libby, I'm coming to you. Can you unmute yourself, please, and ask your question? Libby, I can't hear you in case you're talking. Libby, can you put your volume up and see if that helps? Okay, I can't hear you at the moment, Libby, so I'm just going to go on to somebody else at the moment. But if you can turn your volume up or turn your microphone on, because you're not muted, then you can just start speaking when you're ready. So we've got the assignment 1 due, and you submit it through the Turnitin portal that's available on Blackboard. Let's have a look. Last week, we really went through the description of the assignment, but we didn't have time to go through the criteria sheet. So today I'm going to go through the criteria sheet with you. Please excuse my voice, I have a bit of a sore throat. So basically there are 3 assessment criteria, and hopefully you can see them on my screen now. The first one is academic understanding. The second one is academic literacy. And the third one is your student self-assessment. So let's take a look first at academic literacy. And I'm just going to put your hand down now, Libby. If you want to talk again, just put your hand back up. So for academic understanding, we'll go through that one first, and then we'll go through academic literacy, then we'll go through student self-assessment. If you have any questions that you want to ask while I'm talking about this, please pop your hand up, okay? So let's take a look. So within academic understanding criteria, there's 4 little criteria, and you can see them there. Engagement with the literature, understanding, evaluation, and synthesis. Engagement with the literature. So basically you either pass or fail this. You've either engaged or you haven't engaged. So if you haven't engaged with the course materials at all, you'll get a 0. So if you go to the new idea and submit an article on how Meghan and Harry spoke to Oprah, and then how Meghan abused a palace staff because the blanket was the wrong shade of red, you won't pass. You'll get a fail for that, because we're not really interested in Meghan and Harry, as interesting as their lives are in this course, okay? What we really want to look at is evidence of having engaged with the course materials, including the specific readings. So what that means as well is that you've selected 2 readings from the course. That's it. That's all you need to do to get a high distinction for that criteria. Can you choose something from the textbook? No. No, you can't. So you'll fail for that one. So make sure that you go to the course readings list, which is now available for everybody, and also in the learning schedule, which I emailed to everybody last week. Select 2 readings from that list. It's super simple, okay? Doing that, you already got a high distinction in that range. Fabulous. Well done, everybody. I don't see why all students can't get a high distinction for this criteria, okay? The next one is understanding. So what this means is we want to know that you know what the reading is all about, so that you understand the content. So what this means, because I know you're all heading for a high distinction, is it means that you actually accurately summarize each source. So if you choose the reading about preschool teachers, I think there's one on forest schools. If you choose the reading on forest schools, you accurately summarize it. We know that you've read it and that you understand that it's about forest preschools, okay? And you stick to the point about what it's about. So that's for the 2 readings that you choose, okay? Now, to get a pass in that criteria means you've just described them. You've just said, oh yeah, I kind of get what it's about, but you could have kind of just read it and half copied down stuff. But an accurate summary means you kind of read it, you've put it aside, and you've written it down in your own thoughts, okay? Now, that's the main column of Cornell method, and you can use notes. So don't forget, this is note taking. This is not a mini essay crammed onto a template. It is literally notes. We want you to use the dot point function in Microsoft Word, okay? Note taking. And then we come to the evaluation within that. So to get a high distinction, you provide clear explanation of some strengths and limitation of the cited sources. The cited sources are your readings. That's it. They're the only sources you need to cite within your assignment. That's it, the 2 readings, okay? So the evaluation comes into that second part, the 300 words, so that you've been able to explain about the strengths and limitations of them, and that you can say, preschools might work really well in the Nordic countries where they have lots of forests, but it doesn't work very well in the centre of Sydney, and this is why. So you might say something like that. And then your synthesis, which means bringing it all together and analysing it, uses theory and or conceptual frameworks to inform interpretation of the readings. So what that means is that you understand not just what you've read, but you kind of understand what's going on behind the writing. You can read between the lines. And anyone who's done English at high school in the past 20 years can do this, okay? So it's reading between the lines. What is the person who's doing the writing of this reading actually on about? What do they actually think about children? What do they actually think about learning? So can you communicate that to us? And you'll get a lot of that in the literature section of the article often, or in the methodology section, or sometimes in the conclusion. But generally the literature section of an article, it will pinpoint the ideas of where that person is coming from. Are there any questions about academic understanding before I move on to academic literacy? Isabella, I'm going to give you permission to talk. Yes, can you unmute yourself, please? Go for it.
Just looking at the stuff that's in the chat here about like the 250 words within the summary. So just to clarify one more time, the actual summary in itself and the note taking, is that all 250 words, or is that just the summary?
Great question, Isabella. I think I haven't been very clear and I'm really sorry. So
It's
let's
okay.
take,
I've just seen a couple of questions in like
Yep.
the Zoom chat.
no, thanks, Isabella. Good question. What I've got on the screen now is the Cornell method template. That is not the same, that I've got a different one for you to fill in the template. 250 words, the entire template. So one template, which includes, well, I won't use my finger, this part and this part is 250 words. So one template of one page is 250 words. The other template of one page is 250 words. So 2 readings, 250 words, 250 words, separate, done, finished, leave them alone. Then the part 2, which is the explanation, which I've got up here now, that is 300 words. So in total, 800 words. One course template 250, one template 250, then 300 words. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. We are not trying to trick anybody, okay? It's supposed to be simple. It's supposed to be 250 words plus 250 words plus 300 words for your explanation equals 800, okay? It's a small assignment, but once you get going with it. Jess, I'll come to you, then I'll come to you, Jane. Jess, could you please unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So for the explanation bit, you know how you said it was 300 words? Is that per reading, or do we do 2 readings in one explanation?
Great question, Jess. Thank you. I'm sorry I haven't been clearer with you.
No, that's all right. No worries.
So what we've got going with the assignment is
Yeah.
250 words for the first template, 250 words for the second template. Then you kind of combine the readings together for a 300-word explanation. So the entire assignment is 800 words in total. Okay? So
Yep.
250 words for the Cornell Method 1, 250 words for Cornell Method 2, then 300 words where you're bringing it all together.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
I'm loving these questions because it means I've got to think about ways to be clearer with my communication too. Jane, it's your turn, then we'll come to Tori. Can you unmute yourself, please, Jane?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes. Okay, so my question is just based on the notes that Peter has put into the template regarding what limitations are there with the reading and what conclusions are drawn and how credible is the evidence. You know those notes that are in the panel, notes panel? Yep. So my question is, how does he want us to present that? Do we just do dot points and say the evidence is credible because, or like simple?
So it's not how does Peter want it, it's how do we want it?
How is that meant?
And using dot points is great because the idea of Cornell methods is that it's note taking, okay? And so that it is for you to understand. So that in 10 weeks' time, when you're getting ready for, well, an exam, if you have it in another course, if you're using Cornell method, or for the assignment 3, you can look back at your notes and you understand them. Mm-hmm. I think you should write in note form. Okay, I think that's the easiest way because that's what it is, a note-taking form.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you come to so that's a 250 words plus 250 words is notes.
Yes.
Down here, the explanation, 300 words, that is in an academic paragraph structure. So no, we don't want notes in part 2 explanation. We want coherent sentences.
No, but the notes from Peter are for the template of the Cornell notes anyway. Those dot points, aren't they?
That's exactly correct. So in the Cornell methods template, use notes.
Yeah.
Can I leap in?
Yes, Peter.
The other thing is you don't have to answer all of those questions explicitly. Those questions are there to kind of guide you to think these are the sorts of things you should be thinking about when you're reading an article.
Okay.
So they're kind of giving you some guidance about the kind of things you might want to write notes about, but don't feel I have to answer this question, I have to answer that question, I have to answer that question.
Oh, okay.
There is a kind of rough scaffold to support you in thinking about the sorts of notes you might want to write.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Tori now, and then we'll come to Kayla. So, Tori, can you please unmute yourself, and how can we help you today?
So just with the summary situation, just trying to understand it again. So with the Cornell note making, it has like a little summary under each one. Is that just a summary of what notes we've just taken, and then at the end with the explanation, that's your 300 combined summary.
That is
right?
That is 110% correct, Tori.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tori. That's very good and correct. Okay, we're going to come. Oh, shit. Oh, Shiva, sorry. Oops. Kayla, I'm going to give you permission to talk, and then we'll come to Chelsea. Kayla, could you please unmute yourself?
I just had a few questions. With the word count up the top, where it's got like where you put your referencing, is that included in the 250 word count?
Hi, Kayla. That's a very good question. In APA, referencing is never included in the word count.
Okay.
So really? The answer is no. The referencing up the top is not included as part of your word count.
Okay. And with paragraph, like the part 2 bit in the paragraph, is there like a specific question to answer, or do we just say how both issues in the readings like relate to education?
You just say how those issues in the readings relate to education.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kayla. I'm going to come to Chelsea, then we'll go to Jess. So Chelsea, could you please unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
I can. Yep.
I just have a quick question regarding the synthesis.
Yep.
You say uses theory and or conceptual frameworks to inform interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a little bit confused as to what that's about.
Mm-hmm. So that's a really good question. We haven't gone through that a lot today, Chelsea. So thank you. Let's do that now. So in your synthesis, which means bringing everything together and showing us how you understand things to create new knowledge, what we want you to do is that you've read an article, ensure you understand it, okay? You understand it at face value. To get that really high mark of the high distinction, what we want to know is you understand the message sitting behind it, so you can read between the lines. So if someone says that, let me think of an education example.
Can I leap in?
Yes, Peter.
And like, if we were talking, if you're looking at the Bradbeer article, which we're looking at in week 3, right, then they have concepts like innovative learning space. They have concepts like the ways in which you group students, so kind of approaches to teaching. So those are both concepts, right? Now, there's a what I hope is a really useful post. I put a comment in the chat, which is that, oh, it's actually just the panelists. That's really unhelpful. Hang on, let me send it to everybody. To a link in the help discussion forum, where I've written at length about conceptual frameworks and how, you know, let's not overcomplicate this. A concept is really just an idea, right? Like an integrated, you know, innovative learning space or a way of grouping students. And what we're trying to see is that you can kind of pull out and see some of those kind of key ideas that underpin what you're writing. But I've just, hopefully you can now see there's a link in the chat to a forum post I wrote where I kind of unpack what a concept is, what a conceptual framework is, what a theory is, and then say, keep it simple, folks. You know, we're not expecting you to be using, you know, a huge amount of theory in assignment 1.
So Peter, might we say that if we're looking at the Bradbeer reading this week and they're talking about innovative learning spaces, that the conceptual understanding behind that is that students learn best through peer collaboration. Well, instead of the idea that students learn best by sitting down, shutting up in rows.
Well, in terms of the Bradbury article, what they're talking about is how do you conceptualize what an innovative learning space looks like in terms of the physical arrangement. And so they then create a framework, in a sense, that gives you, here are 4 or 5 different models of what an innovative learning space might physically look like. And then behind that, you're absolutely right, Heather, behind that, there are beliefs about how people learn. And then that moves into their other kind of concept, which is about teaching and approaches to teaching. And they then got a framework, which is about kind of models of how you teach. And they've got, you know, one-to-one teaching, they've got whole class teaching. So they created a framework there for thinking about how do we teach. And so they kind of linking those two things, the physical arrangement of the space with how we group students and how we teach them. And those are two concepts, and they've created two kind of conceptual frameworks, if you like.
Thanks, Peter. Chelsea, does that answer your question, or do you have a follow-up question, which is also fine if you do?
Oh, no, that's all good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chelsea. I'm going to go to Jess O'Grady next, and then Tanisha, and then Lily. So, Jess, could you please unmute yourself and ask away?
Yeah, so I've just got a question about the referencing. So are we just referencing the readings?
Yep, Jess. So in this assignment, there's two references required.
Yep.
The course reading that you use for template 1, the course reading you use for template 2.
Okay, awesome. So is it APA or something we have to do?
APA 7th.
Okay, yep. All right, no worries. Thank you.
That's okay. And in case you've forgotten, not just you, Jess, but other people, there was a quiz in week 2 about how to use APA referencing. And if you're still confused by it, which is okay, because sometimes I get caught up with APA still, and I've only been using it for about 25 years, you can go to the library for support or a learning advisor as well. They're really keen to help you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. We're coming to Lily, and then we'll go to Emily. So, Lily, how can I help you?
Hi, I was just wondering if there was anywhere we could find like examples of how to write the explanation, because I'm sort of used to writing like HSC style paragraphs, and I don't think that's what you're looking for.
Lily,
so
what do you mean by HSC style paragraph?
So like teal.
I love teal.
Okay, we can use teal.
You know what, Lily? Teal works really well in academic writing, okay?
Okay.
So keep using your teal.
Okay.
Or some people call it peel. Like whatever you call it. I know what you're talking about. I know all the different, there's about 10 different varieties that New South Wales teachers teach their students, and they all are roughly teal. Use teal. It's great.
Oh, okay. All good. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about and thinking what planet are they on about teal, it's not a colour. It's a structure for a paragraph. It's, for example, correct me if I'm wrong, Lily, because it's been a while for me, a topic sentence, an explanation, an example, a elaboration, and then a link. And instead of the link, you just close it off.
Yeah.
Am I correct, Lily?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure I could still use that.
Sorry?
I just wanted to make sure I could still use that format. There wasn't someone you want to have to use.
I think teal is a good idea, because what you're doing is thinking about the topic is schooling and education now. An example is from the readings. An explanation, ability, 2 sentences about each of them. Expansion, how they both relate to education, then close it off.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm actually glad you mentioned teal, Lily, because I haven't thought about that for a little while, but I think teal is fabulous. So for everyone else who's a Year 12 leaver in about the past at least 10 years, you'll know what we're talking about. So grab out your old Year 12 English notebooks and use that. Thanks, Lily.
Thank you.
And then we've got Emily. Oh, no. Emily, have I allowed you to talk? Yes. Can you? Emily,
can you hear me?
Hi, how can I help you?
Can you hear me? Sorry.
I can hear you.
Okay. I just had a question with the referencing again.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my readings, the author sort of discusses multiple people's readings, and he references those readings within his own writing. Do I need to reference all of those, or just the writer of the one I'm reading?
Great question, Emily. Only the author of the reading that you're using. So in total, there are only 2 references in the entire assignment.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Lily, do you have another question? If not, can you put your hand down? Okay, cool. Thank you. Natalie, how can I help you? Can you unmute yourself, please? Yep. How can I help you, Natalie?
I just had a question about the Turnitin program.
Yep.
Can you run us through how to do it, and like if we wanted to check the percentage ourselves without turning it in, how would we do that? Or yeah.
Natalie, would you mind coming back next week, and I'll do that next week?
Okay, cool. Yeah.
What I'll do is I'll set up a sample, so then I'll have the screen to share, and I'll and I'll do that. I'm going to write myself a little note. Here's my trusty pen. Here's a scrap of paper that I'm not going to lose. And I'm going to write turn it in for Q&A. Okay, thank you. Do you mind waiting till next week for that?
Yeah, I don't mind at all.
You can also ask your tutor in your tutorial to show you how to use it. But I will definitely do it next week, okay?
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Joshua, how can I help you? Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, just in regards to that referencing question that was just asked.
Yeah.
So you only need to take the 2 referencings for the actual article you're reading. Just in terms of the let's read that we did in our study activities, for the teaching a valued profession, does that mean if we were, taking notes on that, we actually just had to reference just the website that we use, not each, I guess, reference inside the text as well?
Yeah, so we're not referencing the texts within the text. We're just referencing the reading itself. So in the whole entire assignment, there's only 2 references.
Yep. Yeah, I got that. It was just a matter of like with the study activity where you're taking notes on the valued profession of teaching. Just do you have to reference what he's referenced, or you just reference the actual website just for future note taking as well?
For future note taking outside of this assignment, use whatever helps you.
Yep.
Is my advice, because note taking is personal and it's for you. But for this assignment, don't reference anything else.
Yep. Great. Thank you for that.
No worries. Thanks.
Can I just throw in there? I mean, the other thing is you want to be able to go back to the original source. So you need to make sure that you've got some way of linking back to where you saw it originally, just in case you need to for some reason.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Joshua. We're going to come to Abby, then we'll go to Tanisha. Hi, Abby. How are you going? Could you please unmute yourself?
Hi, how are you going?
I'm great, thank you. Abby, how are you?
Good, thanks. I've just got a question about the course readings. So some of them are quite long, and I'm just struggling to condense that all down into notes of 250 words in total. Some of them have like an abstract at the beginning. Could we just base our notes off just the abstract, or would you prefer the whole, like try and get into the whole notes, if you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, Abby. What I think you should do is do the reading.
Yeah.
And there might be 10 or 11 or 12 different concepts in it. Hopefully not, but there could be lots of different concepts in it. What you can do is decide what is the main idea that I want to focus on in this reading, and just choose that.
Okay, yeah.
Because we're not, even though it's a summary, it's not a retelling. So it's just read it, set it aside, and write down some notes about it, or write down one of the main key points. I do know what you mean about there being really long readings and how am I supposed to condense it all into one page. But what we want you to do is just think about, well, what is it speaking to me? So, for example, if a high school student chose the preschool forest one reading, well, they're not preschool teachers. They're not actually going to use those same ideas in their year 11 English class. But what they can do is think about what are some ideas about child play, about child learning that I could apply, and then they would focus that for their 250 notes. So everyone's 250 notes are going to look really different. So it's okay just to focus on something that speaks to you in the reading and to concentrate on that for your note taking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, thank you.
That's okay, Abby. But I understand the stress because every year people have that stress, so I get it. Okay, now we're coming up to Tanisha. Just give me a second, Tanisha. I'll allow you to talk. Can you unmute yourself, please, and then talk away?
No worries. Can you hear me?
I get Tanisha.
Awesome. I'm kind of asking in relation to referencing again, just so that I can wrap my head around it. I read in the retro board, someone had asked a question about using, like obviously we just have to reference the reading that we're talking about in each of the templates. But what I don't really understand is with APA, like, are we literally just like in our summary, in the explanation, are we just literally saying we got this information from this source?
Yes.
Yeah. So we don't have to like link it to any other readings or anything like that. We literally
We don't want you to. So the whole assignment, there's 2 readings.
Yeah.
That's all you to refer to.
Okay, cool.
It's simple. Like I think what we do sometimes, especially first years, because you're nervous about assignments, is we try to overcomplicate it. But Peter and I aren't trying to trick anybody. It's literally 2 readings. You won't get extra points for including, I'm going to get extra points by including all the readings and summarizing all of them together in my 300 words. You won't get extra points. In fact, you'll lose points for that because you haven't followed the instructions.
Yeah.
So it's only those 2. That's all you're referencing.
Cool. I'm just heaps nervous about APA.
I know.
Because I've been out of school for so long. So
it's normal to feel nervous. So what you can do to help feeling nervous, well, to help not to feel nervous, is you can go to the academic advisors and get an appointment with them. And I think I put their link up in the most recent email that I sent out. And make an appointment with them.
Awesome.
And they will help you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tanisha. Before I continue on with the next criteria, which is academic literacy, are there any more questions? Okay, let's go. Can you all still see my screen?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. So we've got your academic understanding. We get it. You get it. Awesome. Let's go to academic literacy. And there's 3 sub-criteria within this. So let's take a look. Clarity of communication in professional English, structure of response, APA referencing. Okay, let's go with the last one first. That's the easiest. APA referencing. Do you follow the APA guidelines? Yes or no? Really? Okay. So, to get a high distinction, there's only 2 references. We don't want any errors. Okay. So check them against the APA guide. You can search the Newcastle Library for APA guide. To be honest, my personal favourite, don't tell anyone I said this because it's to the competition, is I love the Curtin University. Curtin is spelled C-U-R-T-I-N, after John Curtin, Prime Minister of Australia, in case you didn't know, Peter, during World War II. He's actually the one that stood up to the British and told Winston Churchill where to shove his navy. Anyway, getting off track, Curtin University, C-U-R-T-I-N University, APA referencing guide is fabulous, okay? So you can check your referencing there or go to the University of Newcastle Library as well. So we want to know that you've done the 2 references correctly. That's it. Done. Okay? And if you miss some parts, you'll get a credit. Miss some more parts, you'll get a pass. Or if you don't use APA at all, if you use Chicago or something else, you'll fail it. Okay? APA 7th is what we're after. Structure of response. This means, is it coherent? The student who asked before, can I use the teal paragraph structure? Absolutely. Okay. So it means that your structure is coherent. Your marker can read it from start to finish and know what it's about. And we go, yep, this makes sense. So it means no improvements to the structure is needed. To get a distinction, 1 or 2 minor improvements, but it's still a pretty good mark. Credit is a major improvement needed. Okay. And then we go down. And then finally, structure is inappropriate for the assignment. So if you draw a picture as your response, you probably won't pass. Okay. So, or if you send me a poem, you probably won't pass. So what we want to do, it needs to be a structure, it needs to be coherent, it needs to be understandable. Okay, that's your structure of the response. And there's no reason why you can't get a really high mark with that. Okay, because you know how to write, you're at uni, and get some support from academic learning advisors as well. Okay, they're really here to help you. I cannot stress that enough. And using the example from, if you're reading the textbook, you're getting an idea coming into now the first sub-criteria. The textbook is models to you what we mean by professional English. So by professional English, we mean we're not going to have long, complex sentences. Okay, we want professional English usually uses shorter sentences. So like at the moment, my daughter who turns 8 today is learning about compound sentences. Is that what it's called? Where it's blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. We don't really want that in professional English. We want short, sharp sentences. The shorter, the better. Okay. And that it's not grammatically incorrect. So you've used the correct past, present, or future tense. You've used correct plurals. You've used correct there, and there. You know the difference between where and were, those kinds of things. So it's grammatically, we want it to be grammatically correct, including your spelling. Now, I'm going to be a bit harsh here, but in the day of Microsoft Word, there's not really any excuse to have poor spelling, okay? It checks it for you. The odd spelling mistake one or twice it's not the end of the world, but really with a spell check, anytime there's a little red squiggly line, you should be checking it. I'm not saying that Microsoft Word is always correct, because it's not, and it is not always correct about grammar, but it will give you usually a fairly good idea. And then we don't want incorrect terminology, which Peter likes to call flowery language. So we don't want you to use big words because you think it makes you sound smart. We don't want you to get out your thesaurus and go, oh, how can I write important but in a different way? Let's think about all these obscure English words that no one's used for 20 years. We don't want that. Professional English means I can pick it up and I can read it and understand it, okay, without thinking, oh, what is she talking, or he talking about? What is this really superfluous, flowery language that they're using? Just straight to the point, clear communication. Are there any questions before I move on to criteria 3 about what does academic literacy mean? Okay, Chelsea. Sorry, I just took a bite of water cracker. Hi, Chelsea, how you going?
Good, and you?
Again.
I just had a quick question.
Yep.
When you're talking about the flowery language, is that for the Cornell notes? And then when we do our link of the 2 articles, that's when we can use like more, I don't know, like better words.
No, that's for both of them.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean that we don't want you to use smart words, but we don't want you to overly complicate your language, okay? It's better to use the simple language. If you read the textbook, you will notice that the authors are all using really simple language to communicate difficult concepts.
Okay.
That's what we're after.
Okay, all good, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to come to Rihanna and then we'll go to Kayla. Rihanna, could you please unmute yourself? How can I help you?
Hi, I was just looking at the section 2.3 about APA 7 referencing, and to get a high distinction, it says both in-text citations and references at the end are correct, but I saw on Easy Retro that it wasn't recommended necessarily to use. I'll stop.
Yep. So if you don't need to use an in-text citation, then don't. The in-text citations comes when if in that 300 words, you might use a direct quote. If you use a direct quote, then you need a reference within the paragraph.
Okay, so it's still possible to get a high distinction even with no in-text citations?
If they're not needed, yes.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Rihanna. Okay, and we're going to Kayla. Hi, Kayla, how you going still?
Hey, I don't know if this question is going to make sense, but like in regards to saving words, as an example, I've got like students at large disadvantage, but would I need to kind of be a bit more proper and say students at a large disadvantage?
No, do you know what you would say?
No.
You would take that down to 2 words. Correct me if you think I'm wrong, Peter. You would just say disadvantaged students.
Okay, so try, because you know what I mean, I'm trying to be save more words.
Yep, I know what you mean. I would say disadvantaged students.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That's okay. Okay, any other questions before I move on to criteria 3? Okay, I'm going to move on to criteria 3 now. Oh, Natalie. Hi, Natalie. Unmute yourself, please.
Just in terms of the direct quotes, hi, by the way, sorry, that we were talking about before, did you want direct quotes in the note system, or is it preferable to just do your own notes without direct quoting, or,
I know, it's a hard question, Natalie, to be honest. Sometimes there are concepts that people speak about. So when you read the Giroux reading on Henry Giroux, he talked about Freire, and Paulo Freire was an awesome critical pedagogue, which you'll learn about. If there's something in here in that Henry talks directly from what Paulo Freire said, and it's a concept, then you'd want to put that in, speech marks in a quotation, and therefore an in-text citation is correct. But it's better to use those sparingly, okay? So only use them if you need to, but it's fine to use them when you need to.
Awesome, thank you.
So, how's it going? So I'm not going to put numbers on things, but I wouldn't expect you to have 10 in-text citations. You know, you might have 1 or 2 or 3, if that many. Okay, and if you've got none, that's okay too. The most important thing about note taking is it makes sense to you, and you can go back and refer to it. And that if you're using one of Friere's phrases of, you know, pedagogy of the oppressed or something, and you want to go back and see where that was exactly, then you'd write, you know, Giroux, comma, the year and page number. So that's why it's important. It's important for you to go back and look for it again.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Any other questions before I move on to the third criteria? Okay, the third criteria. If you don't get a high distinction for this, you have thrown away marks. I'm just going to be very, very blunt, okay? This is what you can do to get a good mark. Peter's going to hate me again. Or still.
I never hate you, Heather.
To my face. And so the student's self-assessment is you. So you've done your assignment. You've done your 250 words plus 250 words plus 300 word explanation equals 800 words. You've done that. You've set it all out, APA. You've done a great job. Set it aside. Come back the next day. Read it again. Read it against the criteria. So have the criteria beside you, have your assignment that you're reading, and then go through each criteria and say to yourself, was this clear? Have I used long sentences? Have I used APA referencing? Did I have a good synthesis and evaluation? Have I communicated my understanding enough? Could I do some improvements? If you can do some improvements, quickly do them, okay? And then come back, use a criteria sheet and highlight where you think you're sitting, okay? Where do you think you're going with this? So the self-assessment tool is a learning tool. It's learning both how to look at work and compare it against a criteria. And it's also about looking at your own work critically and thinking, where could I improve that? So if you do that against all of the criteria, so 1.1 to 1.4, 2.1 to 2.3, you'll get a high distinction, okay? If you do it against maybe half of them, or at least half, then you'll get a pass. If you do it against less than half, you'll get a 0, you'll fail, okay? So that mark is a good mark to get for encouraging your reflection, encouraging you to edit your work, and encouraging you to think like a teacher. Because in a few short years, you're going to be assessing your students' work. So we want to get you started with that, okay? Now, if you are very nervous and scared and you think, oh, I don't want the teacher to think I'm a high distinction student, I'll just put a pass and I'll be humble. Don't. Put it where you think. But if you do and you think, oh, I've done the best I can, but it's only a credit, but your marker thinks, actually, this is really great work, it's a high distinction, then that's what you'll get. You'll get a high distinction. Okay, so how you actually mark your own work has no bearing on what we decide. Similarly, if you mark yourself as a high distinction, but you've used Chicago referencing, you've used those 2 new idea readings that I mentioned before about Meghan and Harry, and you have no idea who the monarchy is in England despite using the wrong readings, then you'll fail. And you might have given yourself a high distinction, but you won't. So what we really want you to use this self-assessment tool or self-assessment criteria is as a reflective tool to look at your work, revise your work, judge your work, okay? Are there any questions about criteria 3, student self-assessment? Bonnie, and then we'll come to Tanisha. Yes, is it Bon or Bonnie? And can you unmute yourself?
Hey, it's Bonnie.
Hi, Bonnie. Sorry
Hello.
about that.
No, that's all right. So with the self-criteria, like marking yourself. So let's say I've done it once, like the whole thing, and then I go on the marking sheet and I'm like, oh, like I reckon I got this, like I can improve. So I go back and I improve and I fix that thing and I come back and I mark it again. How do I highlight like what, like do I literally get a highlighter? Well, I won't because it'll be on the screen, but like how do I highlight what I think I got to then submit it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, because you're given the criteria sheet in the
Yeah, no, I know, but do I literally write like where it says assessment and then it says self? I just circle where I think.
Yep. Circle or highlight each of them. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I come in, because we've had various questions about this from people who aren't using Word and who are finding it difficult to actually highlight the text. So if you're using Word, the best thing is to highlight, select the text in the box you think. So if we were looking at structure of response and you thought no improvements to the structure needed, you'd select that text and highlight it. If you haven't got Word or you can't highlight, then you might make it in bold, or you'd in some way, put a circle around and do something that indicates that very clearly that you think you're sitting in that particular cell for that criteria. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Good, thank you, Bonnie. Do you have any other questions, Bonnie?
No, all good, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions about criteria 3? Good. Does anyone else have any questions about the criteria, any of the criteria? Good. Let's keep going. So we looked at this stuff last week, which is good. We've been referring to it again today. So we're coming to the end of our meeting because it's 6 minutes to 10, and I know lots of you are going to come over to Building Successful Pathways to learn about going on an awesome international study tour in your 2nd, 3rd or 4th year. So before we get to that, let's wrap up today's session. By now, you should have selected 2 readings, okay? If you haven't, do that today, or do that as your next time you sit down to do your 1038 or 1048 study, you're choosing 2 readings. You're not choosing a reading for life, you're choosing a reading for your first ever assignment at university, so don't overthink it, okay? I don't care if you randomly choose them, it doesn't matter, just choose 2 readings, okay? And that's what you need to be doing ASAP. Are there any questions, comments, criticisms, feedback, compliments about the course, the content, any questions? Peter, do you want to have the last word, as Jerry Springer would say?
No.
No?
Was that me having the last word?
You don't?
No.
Oh.
I'm still typing. I'm here bashing away.
You're here working. I'm here just trying not to vomit by eating water crackers.
Yeah, go for it. You're doing a good job.
And Peter, I should say, happy Commonwealth Day today.
Commonwealth Day.
The Commonwealth.
Means nothing to me.
No, I didn't think so.
I thought there were more important things like Women's Week.
I've already acknowledged International Women's Day. I already acknowledged my daughter's birthday. But the Queen released a message this morning about Commonwealth Day.
Oh, so I'm not very interested in the Queen, it has to be said.
Oh.
The Australians seem more interested in the royal family than the Brits.
Yeah, we love it. It's gossip worthy. I love all the stuff about Harry and Meghan. It makes me laugh.
Yeah.
And strive for the Republic. Are there any other questions, guys? Otherwise, we might finish up now. No, we've got a question from Cooper. Yes, Cooper, could you please unmute yourself? Yes, Cooper.
Yeah, is the assignment in size 12 times numeral or the font? Because it changed. I clicked on it in the template and it was the different font, so I changed it back.
Don't change it. Use the font that's in the template.
Oh, yeah, okay. And I suspect it's Verdana 10 because that is the most legible on-screen font.
Yeah, right. I swear. Thanks.
Yeah, so don't change the font.
Just as a clue, on screen, you're better having a sans serif font like Verdana or Arial, and on paper, you're better have a serif font like Times New Roman or Times. The serif fonts have little squiggles on the end of the T's and things, whereas sans serif fonts don't.
Okay, Zachary, let's have a look. Can you unmute yourself, please, Zachary?
Hello. So going back to the word count. So in the assessment guide, it says each summary is 250 words, but then in the template, so there's the summary box in each of the templates for each source. And so I've done 250 250 words in the summary box, but is 250 words for that whole template or just for the summary box? Because like,
thank you, Zachary. That's a good question. I'm sorry I haven't been clearer on this. So what it is, the entire assignment is 800 words. So all of template 1 is 250 words. All of the template 2, which is the same template as the second reading, is 250 words. So 250 words plus 250 words is 500 words, plus the 300 word summary. The whole assignment is 800 words. So in each template, the whole thing is 250 words.
Oh my God. Wow, okay, I'm going to have to cut it down a lot then, but that's okay, thank you.
No worries, thanks, Zachary. And we'll come to Kaylee, and then we'll go to Jessica. Yes, Kaylee, could you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, hello. It might be a really silly question, but I'm just really struggling to find articles to use. Like I'm struggling to find if they actually have got, I know that they do, but I don't know whether they actually have like an issue in it. So would you say that like every single one of the course readings is an issue, like the contemporary issue that's in it? Like I could just choose absolutely any and I'll find my way with it. Like it'll be fine.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you. I just was really just kind of flustered around it.
Any of the readings at all, you can choose. They all have some connection, even if they were written 100 years ago, which they're not, by the way, but even if they were, they all can be connected to education now in some way. So we're not trying to trick you. You can literally choose any reading.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Kaylee. Now we're going to go to Jessica, then Kayla. Okay, Jessica. Oops. Yeah, Jessica, could you please unmute yourself?
Hi. I just got a question about the article. So can we choose one specific part of the article that we want to talk about, or do we have to talk about the whole article?
Yeah, so you can choose one specific part within the article that you're going to concentrate on for your note taking. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Good question.
And I could leap in here and say I've been answering that differently. So, because I've been saying they should be writing notes on the whole article.
Okay. So I've answered that question a couple of times, Peter. What do you think then?
I'm happy to give, so long as we're being consistent. I'll have to go back and correct myself somewhere because I've said you should be summarising the whole article in your notes.
But they could choose to focus, particularly in section the last one, on a particular area. Do you think?
Yeah. So when they're doing their 300-word explanation, then they're going to pick a particular aspect of the article to talk about. But when they're writing their Cornell note, I think the Cornell note should be a summary of the entire article.
Mm-hmm.
Is that reasonable?
Okay. That's fine. Yep. Thank you, Peter. Okay, Kayla, and then we'll come to Riley. Kayla, could you please unmute yourself?
Hey, I was just wondering, with the rating yourself against the criteria, do we do that for the entire both templates, or do we do it one per template?
No, just one. I mean, just both templates, everything together in one criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Now we've got Riley. Just give me a second, Riley. Okay, yes, Riley. Can you please unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My question is, you're saying about issues, are we relating it to the issue or contemporary education?
We're using those terms interchangeably, Riley, so you can just relate it to contemporary education / the issue. It's how is it relevant to us today?
You don't have to say this issue is related to education because of blah, blah, blah.
No, because
so it can just say this relates to education in this way. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. Thanks,
I didn't
Riley.
know if that made sense, but
it did make sense. Yeah. Thank you. Lastly, we'll come to Shaylee, and then we might give it a miss because I'm now running late to my next session. So Shaylee, how can we help you?
I was just wondering, with the strengths and weaknesses, do you want that incorporated into the explanation, or is that just for the Cornell notes?
Shall I leap in here?
Yeah.
Okay, so I take the view that whenever you're reading something, you should always be thinking about what the strengths and weaknesses are, so you can decide, how much weight you're going to give the arguments within the article. So within the notes, I'm just writing a comment about this actually. And within the notes, I would always be saying something about, you know, I think there's a weakness in the methodology here, which undermines their argument. In the 300-word summary, you don't necessarily have to pull out strengths and weaknesses, though if you've decided that one of the articles actually isn't very credible, that might then change the way in which you write about it in the summary. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Shaylee. And thank you, everybody else, for coming along today. Hope you learned something. And we'll see you back next week for the Q&A, in which I will give you a demonstration of Turnitin. So thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.